Okay, so welcome back. Episode 5 of the Big Aha. And today we're talking about creating the impossible. This is inspired by, Bob, you might know this, but Michael Neal, Creating the Impossible. He's a coach, but his philosophy is on creating the impossible. And also then he created a program to actually go after it and get it. And so we'll see what happens today. We never quite know, but my intent is really, I want to inspire us to kind of maybe start creating something beyond what we actually believe is possible. So I want to start with, I heard this once, I don't know how true this is, but we'll use it for purposes of our call today, is that Elon Musk will create or come up with a project or move toward a project that he believes he has only a 10% chance of success in actually achieving 10% chance of success. So let's just start talking about it. Why do we think he might take that approach? Any ideas? It seems crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting.
It's always a trade-off, right?
About how so?
What's the trade-off? What's the cost is that I'm only going to achieve success 10% of the time. What's the benefit? How does he look at the benefit, or does he?
I'm sure he does. I mean, I have ideas. So I think most of us live in a world of limits. There was this quote in the book that said, we don't create abundance. Abundance is always present. We create limitations.
Right.
And so as human beings, we think of all the things that we can't achieve or the reasons why not. And it's natural, right? The benefit of creating a goal that feels like it's beyond our reach is, well, one is we can only see, I think, so far as we've experienced or we think is possible, right? And so if Elon Musk thought, well, let me create a car that has better gas mileage, he probably would have gone out and created a car with better gas mileage, right? Versus, I don't know what his goal was, but like, what if I eliminated the need for gas in the first place? What? Like, is that even possible that we can do that thing? So not only moving us out of the idea, hi Julie, moving us out of the idea of what is possible in the first place. We're talking about creating the impossible today. But also, if we start going toward that thing, what we could achieve versus if we thought, oh, it's not possible, so I'm not even going to try in the first place.
Right. Can I respond?
Yeah, please. I'm interested.
Because I remember back in the early 90s, mid 90s at IBM, they got us all together in a room, a bunch of us, and they wanted us to create the impossible. What could you even think about? Not even 10%. What is impossible? Only because if you can't think it, you can't make it, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember after the 2 days, I remember the one thing, and I don't know how we got there, but it's like, what if you could just call up and have your groceries ready for you, or even better, delivered to your home?
Wow.
It was like that's absolutely crazy to think about. There was no cell phones, there was no internet, there was nothing. What if that was possible?
Wow.
I remember that being the thing, and then it became a thing. It was like, but we just said it will happen, and I know IBM made it happen or helped make it happen. But it was that kind of thinking that, and they really, really, really stretch us more. And that's what I was thinking when you were talking about 10%. I'm like 0%.
Yeah,
0% of it, because it's just never happened before.
Right.
That's, and it happens.
Right. And so it's not 0%. I mean, that's the thing. But we get so convinced that, well, that's not even possible in the first place. So why would we even spend time trying to do that? And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
So true.
If I never go toward it. And And then that's why, you know, it's like what comes to mind is when you hear people say, oh, that was my idea, I invented that. And you're like, well, but you didn't do anything with it, right? Like someone else actually made it happen. Someone else had the gall, right? Or the idea that actually, well, let me see if this is something that I can actually create. So I have this idea that there are like 3 things that we need to any level of success. And so I'll ask this question first. I'm sure you guys have some ideas of what those are too, but like, what's the difference between you and Oprah as far as capacity to achieve the level of success that she's achieved? What do you think the difference is?
Focus.
Focus.
I think she brings an extraordinary focus to what she does.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
There are
good
less polite words for focus.
We'll keep it at focus. Anything else? Like, what is the difference?
So the one thing that I learned over the weekend, you talk about Mike O'Neill, you know, what the hell's his name? Steve Hardison.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Hardison. So I had a conversation with him over the weekend.
Nice.
Because I watched his video, well, very rare video. And the one word is very close to focus. I love that focus too. Commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was it, commitment.
Yeah.
And I just said, okay, I commit.
Don't commit me,
but
right.
Maybe. But yeah, commitment. Focus is the same thing. I think
Yeah.
it's the same thing. You can't have commitment without, or focus without commitment, and vice versa. I love that.
And when you really start to think about it, it's like, well, wait a minute. That really is the determining factor between me and achieving that level of success. And yet we create all these stories about, oh, well, that's Oprah, like, or that's this person. It's a human being with human capabilities. And it comes down to the mindset, right? And so I think about success, it's like mindset, skill set, and community are the 3 factors, right? And mindset being the most important in the sense of like, okay, you have to have a sense of what you want to do, what you want to create. And then the belief that if I go, like, I can achieve it, right? Like, I'm deserving of it. I can achieve it. I believe that. And letting that be your inspiration, because it's going to get hard, right? There are going to be roadblocks, internal and external. But without that belief, you're not going to have the dedication that you need, right? You're not going to feel the focus toward this is the thing that I want to be creating. You're not going to be resilient when things do get hard. You're going to give up. And so the difference is like that. I don't know. I think it comes down to belief of like, yeah, this is worthy and I'm worthy of doing it. And I care enough about that end result that I'm going to make it happen no matter what. And so when we talk about creating the impossible, it's like recognizing, well, where are you putting up roadblocks versus like, I'm going to figure it out no matter what, because it means enough to me.
So I'm just going to bring up something that sticks in the back of my mind, and I wonder if it does in anybody else's. And that is, there's an implied, when I read titles of, or I look at covers of books like that, there's an implied definition of what success is.
Mm-hmm. Do you
And
think so?
oh, clearly in my mind, whether it is in anybody else's, I don't know. But there's a part of that success, which I see when I look at those books, that I absolutely don't want. And so I look at it and judge myself negatively for having an aspiration which is less than conquer the world.
Yeah.
No, I
Really interesting. We kind of touched on that, I feel like, a little bit last time too, right?
Oh, we're very related. I think these topics are right on top of each other.
Yeah, yeah.
There was the first thing I thought too, when, I'm sorry, Chris.
Go ahead.
First thing I thought too was, what's the measure of success and how do you measure it? Yeah, for sure. Then it shifted a little bit for me. Then then the impossible, creating the impossible is whatever, it's the impossible thing you think of. Then the success then only becomes creating that. Creating it is the success. So whether it was just another way of measuring it, but for sure, success
See,
is.
this is,
I think there's other ways to measure success, even if you have an impossible goal. Because, like, if you're not going to get to it, basically, or there's a good chance you're not going to get to it. You'll probably develop something. If you can't develop a car that can't use gas, you might develop a much better car for all sorts of other ways. Or if he can't get to Mars, maybe he'll get a really cool way for all sorts of people to go to the moon. The word I thought of with Oprah was opportunity. She saw opportunities, because I think most people go in some direction. I mean, I'm sure she didn't plan what she turned out to be. I'm sure Martha Stewart didn't plan to be quite as debonair.
I don't think Martha Stewart can help it.
Yeah, well, the society just loved her so much. But it's same with Oprah, I guess. But I think if you start in the direction, and she was definitely determined to become a TV show host, maybe, or whatever. And then she saw different opportunities arising out of that and was choosing interesting directions that turned out generally well. And promoting books. I mean, just the book promotion stuff she's done alone has been amazing. And I'm sure she never dreamed of doing that until it crossed her mind, or some author came on. She's like, yeah, maybe we should have a book club, So I think seeing and seizing opportunities is another big portion of getting somewhere down to your goal.
I agree. And I think I promise I don't have 100 million Michael Neal quotes, but the other one that I had pulled up was the ultimate formula for success creation is showing up and beginning to move in the direction of your dreams, and then responding to what shows up along the way.
We talked about that a lot, Christine. Like, you have to have something to guide yourself by to keep that momentum flowing forward. Mm-hmm. So we talked about curiosity. Like, if what you have to gain every day by showing up is learning something new, you'll see the new direction developing because you're looking for that spark, that thing that lights you up, that thing that you never thought of before, but it's starting to happen, and you can then turn your eye to it. You can put your focus on it and say, what's going on there? And then follow that.
Yeah.
Ride the wave. Yeah.
Right.
And things show up that you never would have known had you not started down that path. Like, I think even about starting into coaching, I thought it was completely different than what I was entering into. I didn't know I'd be having this conversation, right? Like, but the things that I saw and learned along the way, grasping onto those things and following the breadcrumb, right? And so I think it's so interesting your point, Wynn, on success. Success is one of those words that I don't have there's not like a negative connotation. I don't know if negative is the right word, but it's really about whatever that means to you. And if it's just, being joyfully happy every day, that's not a great example, but if that's the idea, if it's an emotion or a feeling or something you want to grasp in that level of, like, success to me looks like working an hour a day and doing this other thing, whatever that, I guess, is defined for you, figuring out what that looks like and then going toward it. And is it okay, like, if you get 10% of that result, like, does that look like success to you? Is that acceptable? And I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer, but.
So just on success for a second. So it reminds me of the story that we hear at a coach training, which is you're a batter in a baseball game and you're going up to bat, and your job is to get that ball into left field. And that's the only thing that you know, is to get it into left field. And you stand there and the ball comes at you and you can see that ball coming in slow motion. You know exactly how to hit that ball. You know exactly how to stand. You know exactly where your feet should be. And you do all of that perfectly. The ball comes, hits the bat, and it goes to left field exactly like you were supposed to do. And then the outfielder catches it and you're out. Were you successful?
No.
You're a loser. You're a loser. I told you you're a loser.
Is there a guy on third? I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. So
yeah.
Or just say you're successful there because you did your part. I think
Absolutely.
I'm co-creating my life with the universe. And if the universe says, no, that's not the way it's going to go, I accept it. And I say, okay, well, what next?
Bingo. That's it. You did everything,
Yeah.
and the outcome is out of your hands.
Mm.
And you have to accept that, but you were successful. That's in terms of success. I think I agree with Julie. I don't know if anybody else does, but I agree with Julie on that one too. That's how I live. I can only do what I can do, and the rest of it, the outcome, is not mine. But that gets a little bit away from the impossible, which I just want to put out there, that the quote that you said, which I wrote down, we don't create abundance. Abundance is always present. We just create limitations. I just put impossible. We don't create the impossible. The impossible exists.
Mm.
We just put limitations there. And it does exist, because everything that any human being ever did was impossible before they did it. It just was. And there was no guarantee of success of any of it, even the smallest thing that you do. But it's there in some quantum related world. Everything that's it just exists, and we just create limitations for it. Same quote.
It's like the difference is like, am I willing to try?
Am I willing to try? Am I willing to believe? Am I willing to create? It's there. All I need to do is get it.
Or which do I want to believe? Do I believe that the limit exists?
Right.
Or do I believe that we don't know yet?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the focus that Wynn was talking about, you'll find out anyway. I think.
Right.
Or branch off into something else, like I was saying before. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like the, I don't know if you've heard of the idea that it's life is a game. Like, if this really is just a game, we take it so seriously, clearly, right? But it really is just a game that you're playing. We're playing. It's not about the outcome, right? It's not about the end goal. It's about, how did I play? What did that look like? Is it super fun? You know?
Time.
And even in coming up with the impossible, like, what would just be really freaking cool? Like, what would be just so much fun versus, I want to make this amount so that I can buy this, or I want to do this so that I can get to the next thing. It's just for the sake of it, creating something truly extraordinary and awesome.
So, well, that I agree with 1,000%. And just anything we do as humans is awesome. And so that's what and I say that all the time, play. When you're a kid, you play. They give you a ball, you play with it. You just play with it and play with it and play with it, put it on your pillow, throw it against the wall, do whatever you want. It's fun.
Yeah.
Then somebody tells you, no, you're doing it wrong. You got to hit the ball, you got to run, you got to get into the hole, otherwise you're a loser. Those are rules we don't have to live by in order to create, if you will, and have fun with it. And life is the same way. We get these senses, and we're here on Earth to have fun with everything that we have here. Our being that exists outside of being here on Earth doesn't have the ability to have feel, taste, touch, love, emotion. It doesn't. It comes here to Earth to do all of that.
So this is vacation.
This is more, exactly. This is a playground. It's more. Somebody tell you, why do I come to Earth? Because it's awesome. I get to do all this and have fun with it. Don't even measure it. So yeah, same thing. I agree.
Maybe success is about feeling, then the feeling you have. And in that baseball analogy, like, when you start putting rules on it, it starts to feel like an oppressive obligation almost.
Not only is it the feeling, you're absolutely right, Julie. Again, I agree. But it's any feeling without judgment. Because I might feel sad. That's okay. That's being human, and I love it. It's part of the play. It's there for a reason. I'm just saying for that, right? It doesn't always have to be joy, because even joy and peace and happiness are part of the illusion. They only exist here on Earth. Our unearthly being doesn't know joy and peaceful and happy. That's part of the illusion. And we enjoy it. But
so we might as well jump in then, right? I mean, I guess, like, what's the alternative?
Nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And as long as you're here, yeah. So, I mean, I know we're far from impossible, but
it's the idea.
But I take it, everything on Earth is impossible. And we make everything possible.
Well, I think it's true. Like if you're looking at it and like everything is impossible, then I don't know. I think it all comes down to choice again, right? Like if it's like, well,
Yes.
I can live within the limits of what I think is supposed to be, or I can test it and kind of play and see and not be so worried about the outcome.
That's right.
Um,
Than anything.
ask for what I want and see what happens, right? Like I think,
Oh,
I don't know, maybe to your point, Julie, like the success is a feeling. Fear is the same thing, right? It's not fear of the failure, it's fear of the feeling of failure.
The
It's
things
the
that you do to yourself when you decide you've failed, right? That feeling of shame or regret, or you should have invested your energy in a different way, or um, that's a feeling too. And that's something that generally is not a thing anyone enjoys. Like you can learn things from negative feelings, they can speak to you, like your shadow self, but normally you don't want to live there full time. You want to take that lesson back into the light and say, okay, I learned this about myself, how can I move it in another direction now?
Yeah.
Like
I just getting now that it's like the image of Pac-Man, right? Like I lost that one a little early, well I'm going to put another quarter in, right? And we don't well maybe some people
it's
do,
no
but
big
like beat
deal.
ourselves up for losing that game, right?
Right.
We keep trying because it's fun and only for that reason.
yeah. And we have a million quarters. It does it. It only
Yeah.
runs out at the last breath. The other thing that you said, Christine, that really gets me is that you said to have the audacity to ask for it.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Because it's just having the audacity to ask for it. And I did learn that this weekend from a Hardison. He sent me a poem a story that his wife, the first time that they were together, they went on a picnic or something. And he had the audacity to ask for things and he actually got them. And he said, only because I only asked. They didn't have to give it to me. So the audacity to ask for it, the audacity to even think the impossible and say the impossible is possible and I'm going to make it happen or I'm going to live in that.
Or I want it.
Or I want it. Absolutely.
And don't tell me I can't have it, right?
Don't you dare.
I mean, I think we have.
Interesting date.
Yeah, yeah, right. Tell us more. I think I know, like, I don't ask for as much as I'm practicing into it, right? Like really truly asking for what we want. Whether it's fear of, well, I don't think I'm going to get it, or fear of that rejection, or does that make me selfish, or whatever that is. But throwing it out there in the world. And then I think half the time you'd be surprised what you actually get back. Versus if you never ask for it, you're pretty much guaranteeing you're not going to get it.
That's true. But this also brings up to what Wynn said before. Depends on how you define it. I know so many people who don't want don't want what Oprah has. Don't want, it's not always the greatest thing. It's, I just want to exist and not have to work.
Yeah.
Or I just want to exist and go to work and come home.
Yeah.
And that's all I want.
That's what's so important, is to come into that notion of what that means for you. And so with, I wouldn't want to be Oprah necessarily, but the difference to me is knowing what you want and then going after it and creating it with that focus, whatever that may be. And so that's the differentiators. Her dream was different. Maybe it's more money or more fame or whatever the thing is that you don't want, but the drive toward believing, well, I deserve it and I can have it, and I'm going to do what it takes to achieve it, whatever I need to put in place in order to get that.
That brings it full circle for me too, because I don't know if you remember, but 50 years ago, I was a social worker in New York City.
I don't think I knew that. Pre-IBM.
Yeah, pre-IBM. Wow. I wanted to work for IBM, and I'm a social worker, right? And in 1974, you do not say, I'm going to go from social work to IBM. That's what you crazy.
It's really okay. What?
Remember, at the time I lived in the Bronx. I was born and raised in the Bronx. So anybody that I said I'm going to go from social work to, said, you're fucking crazy. And it took me 2 years from the time that I said I was going to do it, but I did it. And that, to me, that was my impossible. There was no way.
What is so important about that, Bob, is the 2 years. First of all, maybe it seemed like it would be 50 years at the time that you put it out there. It took 2 years of focus, and I'm sure putting skills in place, right? The community in place, connecting with the right, doing what you needed to do. The difference is, and I think it's so important, and I'm guilty of this too, being like, oh, I want this. How do I get it immediately? Right? And if I don't get it immediately, versus, well, maybe it's going to take 4 years to get there.
And
all right. What do I need to do?
And I'll go back to something Julie said and Steve said, because I got an interview right away for some reason, and I failed horribly. And I had the guts to say, all right, tell me what I did wrong. I know I'm not getting this. Like 5 minutes ago, I know I'm not getting this job. And I had the guts to ask, because again, there was nothing, I didn't feel like a failure. I just said, there's something wrong here. I know something's got to be different the next time.
Mm-hmm.
And to get to that's to get to Julie's point. I didn't see that as a failure. I just saw it as another thing to learn, to be a step to the next thing. Yeah. Then it was, well, what the hell am I going to do at IBM? I'm a social worker. What am I going to do there? And it led me to programming. Yeah. And boom, I learned how to do programming. At night, I went to school. Yeah. And it was great. And it was 2 years later, I got another interview, and boom, I got it. But I didn't know I was going to be a programmer.
What would you say is the biggest factor to your achieving that goal?
All right. Whew. It's a good one. I always say it was given to me by God, but I will say that, yeah, just exactly what I said. I was not going to accept failure. Resilience. I just wanted it so bad. I was desperate. My son was born by then. I was on welfare. I could not afford food. We were getting cheese and diapers from the government. And I literally looked at him and I said, one day you're going to want to go to college, and one day you're going to want to live in a house. And I just put my hands up to God and said, just give me that. That's all I want. That's all I want. I don't know how I'm going to get it. I don't know what, but just give it to me. Show me the signs and I'll go. And it just came. I'm serious. That's very serious.
I do think there's something so important about asking for it first without worrying about the how. Yeah. How am I going to get there?
Right.
That's where we get stuck, right? Versus this is what it is. And then how do I figure out the rest? Beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Well, that one went all over. I loved it. So any last, I guess, parting thoughts or takeaways or insights, or what do you want to do with all this today?
Well, does anybody have something that's impossible? Seriously, I would love to know what everybody's impossible is right at this very moment.
The way I'm taking it is, I've got a lot of clients who feel like what they're heading for, I'm a career coach, is impossible. So I'm trying to figure out how I can wake them up a little bit. Is that me beeping? I guess it is me beeping. I don't know.
For me, I mean, I came into this without really having big dreams recently. I have dreams kind of about personal goals and writing and other things. And I have work goals of I want to get a job of some sort, but nothing like combining my passions and jobs very well anymore. And it's hard to even think of how I could really do that to make something really productive in my way, as well as a little bit of the money way too. And that's kind of seemed impossible for a long time. So you've got me thinking more about trying to unite my personal projects to something bigger and with a little income attached. So that's one big thing I've gotten out of this. Plus, I'd love to see one or two of the quotes that you quoted before, Christine, and maybe in a follow-up email.
Sure.
I can't remember.
I have them written here, so I'll send them
I'm sure you have them somewhere.
I had a couple notes today. Yeah. And I'll let everyone go, but it brings me back to, and I probably even mentioned this last time, I know I talk about it all the time, is a goal is not a destination, it's a place to come from. And we get so caught in our today and the how and the scary things and it feels heavy and versus coming from that place of the future where, what does that ideal look like? What have I created? Really getting into a sense of what would be ideal without worrying about the how or the how am I, all the reasons I can't, or I shouldn't have it, or I don't deserve it, or or it's silly and I don't want to tell anyone, they're going to, you know, any of that. Like, what really is that vision? How does that feel? What does that look like? What does it mean for my life? Not just my career, right? But my relationships and my health and the fun I'm having. And once you really have that sense of what that feels like, how you're spending your time, where your priorities are, your values, all the, then making decisions from that place. What would he tell me to do right now? Right? When things feel hard, or like, what attitude is he showing up with today, or what energy, what habits is he incorporating? I have to make this decision. What does he think about it? I mean, even to that level of our hindsight is 20/20. So when we come from that space, it's just a really powerful space to be.
And can I add to that, Christine? When we were working recently, I think the thing that really drew a lot of things out of me personally was being asked to blurt that stuff out at random without thinking too hard.
Yeah.
I was in the quiet of my own home, grinding away, trying to imagine the perfect future. And I was just exhausting myself and feeling just worse and worse about it. And then you're like, don't worry about whether it's a good idea yet or not. Just kind of like, just react to the question, just blurt some stuff out. And then recently, some of the stuff I blurted out that seemed like too big, too much for someone else, it's starting to look really real.
Can you stop blurting right now? I'm serious. I want to hear it.
I'd love to hear it, but I have to go.
We'll see you.
I win. I am going to be an energy healer. And I'm going to write a book about it. And I'm going to train other people to do that.
That's beautiful. One small, tiny change. I am an energy healer. I am writing a book.
I am an energy healer. I am writing a book.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
It is.
Putting it out there in the world is
Huge.
an extraordinary feeling, right? It makes it real. Yeah, it's just really powerful. So Steve, I'll encourage you to spend some time flirting with that idea, right? Of what would be really fun in the future. And maybe we'll create some space to blurt it out into the world if you're so open.
Flirt.
It's better than you think too.
It's really fun.
Fire.
It's really fun. It's a lot versus, right, what Julie was saying, when we're in our heads, we get so caught, versus kind of just being in that space and letting that. So, all right, gang. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
No, I just want to know what, not now, or we can do one-on-one kind of thing. What do you define? How do you define an energy healer?
Okay. Why don't I'll pause the recording and then you guys can, let's.
That's a lot to talk, Bob.
I know. That's